Welcome to the Lighthouse. I'm your host, Ryan Hobenusser, and this is the show for business leaders to unlock their full potential. Together, we're going to explore the tools, strategies, and insights that you can use to navigate the complexities of the entrepreneurial mind, maintain your mental wellness, and elevate your leadership to take your business and your life to the next level. Each episode, we're going to bring you powerful conversations with various leaders across multiple industries who have the mindsets, strategies, and tools that they've used to transform their own journey. So whether you're here to lead your team better, grow your business, or take your life in a completely new direction, this is the show for you. Let's illuminate your path forward. Welcome back to the Lighthouse. Today's guest is Luka Hocevar, a former pro basketball player who's turned into a high-performance coach, entrepreneur, and one of the most respected voices in the fitness industry. He is the founder of Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance. He's the creator of the Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit. Him and his friend Andy McCloy, another guest of the show, they run the Built to Last program for gym owners. He's got his small group training mastery and countless other workshops for trainers, coaches, and gym owners that you can tap into to grow yourself and your business. And overall, he is a leader who's helped thousands of people, from pro athletes to business owners, and optimize not just their physical body, but their mental performance. And that's why I'm excited to have Luka on the show. Like, he really blends just elite coaching, deep emotional intelligence, and this entrepreneurial experience that is, I think, rare in multiple countries and multiple industries. I was fortunate enough to be mentored by Luka early on in my career, and he's someone I've always respected and looked up to for a really long time. So I'm excited to unpack Luka's evolution from pro athlete to entrepreneur and explore how he builds businesses, communities, and is actually building his life around these core values. So welcome to the show, Luka, and let's dive in, dude.
Man, thank you, brother. That was a beautiful intro. It makes me want to shed a tear like Luka Doncic in the game last week. Jeez.
I saw that.
I know. I was almost crying. I'm not going to lie.
So, dude, where we start the show is like going back to getting into entrepreneurship for the first time, and just kind of your story. If you take us back to early days, like even before the gyms, like I remember some of the stories that you were telling me with jeans, actually.
You remember the jeans story?
Oh my, yeah, that just actually just came to me. So it doesn't have to be that story, but just when you got into entrepreneurship, kind of what drove you into that, and well, dude, we'll go from there, man.
Yeah, the jeans story is a good story. I think share it. It's like I never You wonder, now that you're older and like you had you're older and you're sitting with your aunts and my mom and dad, it was like last couple of years, and they're like, yeah, ever since you were a kid, ... And I always was a pretty hyper kid, a negotiator per se, and I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I was that too. But I definitely, I was always trying to figure shit out. I mean, seriously, even when I was younger, the stories would be told where I'm bartering with other kids at like 8, 9 years old about getting something, but always trying to win the deal. And I don't know what that was. I certainly think that like I was the youngest kid. I was a bit scrawny. I think I didn't get as much attention. I really wanted to be seen. I think that was kind of a underlying theme of my life for quite a bit of time, before going into therapy. And like, we'll get there, right? Where it was, you're going to see me, and then you do all types of things to be seen. Sometimes those things are dumb things. And this entrepreneurial kind of spirit, I think we came back from, so we moved to London when I was 7 years old, came back kind of right around when the war started. And my life was sort of a mix of being a knucklehead out in the streets, playing a lot of basketball. Basketball was my thing. I'd go to school, not all the time, but I'd go to school enough to be able to, swindle my parents that I'm going to school. So
and make the trades with the kids at school, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I was always willing to deal in school, that for sure. But one of the things that would happen, like I would see opportunities. That's one of the things that, like in Slovenia back then, this is post like socialism. We just kind of, we went independent in 93, I think, but the war was in 91, but it was very short. But like you didn't have access to stuff like Jordans and a lot of Nike, and like, let alone, this was the era. And I was a big like hip hop head, as like academics and Sean John and FUBU, and, and because I was in London, I had some of that stuff, right? Now you got your friends will listen to hip hop, like, yo, where you get those jeans? Like how you get, you can't buy any of the stuff. And one of my friends, basically his mom's friend she was sewing. So basically she was in the clothing kind of space, but it was like, think of it, mom and pops, right?
Yeah.
She goes like, yeah, like she can make those jeans. We're like, what do you mean she can make those jeans? Like, could you make them like this, exactly like this? Yeah, she can make anything. So we end up going like, okay, like let's give her these, Sean John jeans and like have her create like a replica, essentially. Her company was called musher, like basically think usher with the M in front of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell it meant. It doesn't matter. We're just like, hey, make that so small that nobody. Yeah. And so, we order a bunch. Like, by the way, these jeans were equivalent to about $7 to make. So $7, right? But shit, like, let's do like 20, right? Let's do 20 and see if we can sell them to our friends. And it was like, I mean, when I say like day one, I have commitment to all of these, like for $60, right? So we're like 8, 9,
Nice.
right? And it's like, and all of a sudden, like we're selling, I'm not exaggerating, like hundreds of these things, right? Because it's like, the community is the hoopers, the hip hop heads.
Yeah.
Nobody can get access to, the cool jeans and stuff. And so, and I have a bunch of different models and we start making these different models, you know what I mean? So this goes on for a while. Like, let's call it, I don't know, at least a year, maybe 1 year. And then my friend's little brother, one time when he's going with his mom, to this lady that does this, and he doesn't understand. He's too young, and he starts saying stuff. He starts saying, like, for the other one thing that happens too is that she's now making so many orders, she's messing up. She's basically like a solo in her family kind of shop, making tens, hundreds of these things, right? So we're getting like colors, sizes. We're having to start to check. Like, this is basically a lesson in kind of,
you're breaking the system.
Oh yeah, and it's like a lesson of like how old am I? Like probably like 14, right? 13, 14 here, and we're figuring out like distribution channels and
like so many great lessons at such a great age. Like even just the epiphany of seeing that you could sell that for that price point and how fast it happened. Like that's such I feel like an insight and like mind explosion that happens in an entrepreneur, and Absolutely. To have that at that age is so great.
I mean, learning the basics, right, of demand, just supply and demand and margins and marketing and, brand essentially, right? Because it's like we ran in circles and people are like, yo, where do you get those? I mean, all those things that you don't really truly understand, but you're kind of getting an experience of it. And basically what happened with that whole scenario is that one, it was a lot of work on her end. And then the brother ended up saying like what we sell them for, and then she raised prices on us significantly. And it kind of, over probably another 5-6 months, it kind of withered away. We were like, we're on to bigger and better things. And it was like into, once I hit that age, 14 and 15, like I started getting into more kind of trouble and dumber and eventually into selling drugs. And it was, the interesting part of it is I felt like when I look back, it was always the entrepreneur. It was two parts. Like I want to be seen, like I want to feel like important. Yeah. And it was the entrepreneurial side of me, like, hey, like I'm going to find an opportunity where I can make $1, but it led into, I would say, circles and around people that didn't necessarily lead into the direction of life that was good and healthy. But it's like when I look back that, Foresight 2020, there's still so many lessons from that like some of them helped me later on and some of them hurt me. But I became very good at, things like communication, being able to like notice things, I was on Brett Bartholomew's podcast quite a while back when we were talking about this, like, hey, where did you develop these skills that really help you in coaching? And I was like, man, the streets were big because it's like you become really good at like persuasion, at influence, at reading people, at body language, at
just like human behavior and sensory acuity. It's
absolutely. And it's such a huge aspect of coaching, right? Because especially when you deal with so many different, I look at, almost 20 years in the gym space, 20 plus years in coaching, and like who I coach even today, right? It's like athlete superstars to, kids to, it's like the people with injuries. They're just coming out of like a really, really mentally hard space. And all of those kind of life experiences of me growing up, good and bad, were really actually instrumental in helping me become a better coach, right? Not the theoretical part and, the science, which I later kind of...
What's like the unspoken skills that you need,
Yes.
Like in order to coach. And actually, if you don't mind, I got a question selfishly for myself.
Please.
Is in coaching other coaches, I'm curious, do you find it difficult in teaching them those like sensory skills? Because that was something like for me, I used to always train our team at the gym
Like, I want you to be able to have eyes in the back of your head, where like if you stand and you're coaching one client, you should know behind you if that client needs help. Like, that's how familiar you should get with these things with your clients. And I remember getting frustrated at a point and realizing like you're an idiot. They don't know how to do what you're doing. That's why they can't do it. Like, because they didn't have that, a bit like whatever experience that you had growing up that caused you to learn that.
There's so many, and like, for example, let's take another thing that was very helpful that I later was like, oh, this makes sense, right? Like, yeah, basketball was my life, right? For a long period of time. In basketball, I mean, it's a team sport. To be good at it, it's like awareness of the whole court, where players are, plays, intuition, like intuition's a real thing, where it's like, oh yeah. I mean, you look at, again, going back to like Luka Doncic, right? Why does the guy make a pass it's like 3 plays ahead of everybody else, right? And it's the same thing where you start kind of recognizing where people are. You talk about group training, semi-private coaching. When I started in a little garage here in America, and it's called Rent and Results Boot Camp back then. And it was, it became really known. One, we were like doing kind of boot camps on a recurring basis, which was kind of the new thing. I was applying a lot of, I would say smart, let's call it smart training. I sound like egotistical, but the way that things were back then, it was just like, whatever.
Yeah, I totally got you.
I know, so it's like there was structure, this, that, the other. But, people were like, man, like I go to this boot camp, it's this Eastern European guy, it's kind of crazy, but it's like, there's 20 people in a class, but you think he's always there. And it's like, they're on the other side and he calls your name when your hips are dropping. It's like crazy. I'm like, does he have cameras in there? What's going on, right? And I realized there was like this awareness to me. It's like the training floor became the court, right? Yep. And it's like, I'm playing, I'm essentially having to see what's going on. And again, intuition, eyes in the back of your head. Okay, this guy's doing a little more complex drill. Let me keep my eye on him. All right, but then I'm yelling at experts, and because they're not going at a fast enough pace, and I know that they can. Then I'm bringing my tone down as I'm talking to the older lady, making her feel safe. And there is this part of it where it's sometimes difficult. Later on, you can kind of put it into a checklist. That's what I'm doing now, right? What I'm doing now is like kind of operationalizing a lot of this to teach people how to do it and give them actual, like, practice this thing and you'll get better at the thing, right? Whereas before it was like, how do you do that? It's like you said, and you're like, well, this I can tell you, but this I kind of can't. I just do it. And as you dive deeper and you kind of break it apart, Legos, right? Like, and you go, oh, okay, cool. Well, here's a building block, practice this. Here's a building block, practice this. Here's a building. And all of a sudden, like, your coaching skills come up, right? But there is an advantage. Like, I think everybody, by the way, has certain advantages from their experiences in life. Oh, yeah. Now, this will sound like why, my life has been, compared to most, it's been a very, very full life, right? Like, I mean, from where I was born to, I was born in Yugoslavia, pre becoming a democracy, right? I was like socialism, borderline communism. And then, when I was 7, I moved to London, complete cultural shock, right? I don't know the language. Like, day 14, my dad drops me off in an English school. I'm like, it's like figure it out parenting, which I'm now thankful. I learn English quickly. I also get in a lot of fights. I get, all this stuff. We're there for 4 years. I'm basically like, oh, cool. I'm like, I feel like I'm in England now. Boom. And we moved back, post-war. So I just moved around a lot, did a lot of things. By the time, got into a world of not so great things with crime, basketball to save my life, truly did. I made a decision to leave and go play in the US, which was part of the reason why, was to get away from it. And now in upstate New York, and by the way, pretty on a whim, upstate New York, I'm in junior college playing ball.
So ironic too that we know each other, because we're like for me to be from upstate New York, or Krebs from upstate New York, and then to get connected in the industry, it's just so strange.
It's very interesting. It becomes like a small world, but that's a connector too, right? Where like,
synchronicities.
Exactly. And so when I look at these things, like, I just had a lot of life experiences where I was either put into or chose, to make a huge change, and then had to really adapt.
And it forced you to basically develop abilities.
Absolutely. It was like the environment, it's like we choose our environments, and our environments shape us.
It's so interesting you say that, because so many of these conversations I've had end up coming back to this topic and then talking about the abilities that we have, but never knew until you like thought about it. And went back through it, and because there's like that used to scare the shit out of me as a kid, is like the stuff that would happen in my brain, and I didn't realize it until going through everything I just went through, where I was like, oh, it's because I could do these things I didn't know I could do because of this specific environmental and circumstance that I went through. So
I think, I think that people, one thing to definitely take away from it is to kind of recognize your strengths, right? Because everybody through their life kind of develops things. I look at like my girlfriend. I hate calling her my girlfriend. Actually, it's like she'd probably smack me at this point in time because she's my life partner, and best thing that's happened in my life, and we're having a child together. But she's had like very, very challenging kind of journey in life, more than I can even speak about here. But through that, she's developed, some skills that are very, very powerful, and I kind of go, have to sometimes shine a light on it, be like, hey, like, you're incredible at this. Like, I don't think you even understand how incredible you are, because you had to become incredible to cope with and deal with all the, the challenges and trauma in your life, right? Like, and that's strength. And if you can extract that and take that into the things you do, oh boy, it's like superpower type stuff, right? Like, pour more fuel on the fire of the thing that you've developed through the adversity and challenges of life that made you resilient. Right?
It's such a breakthrough too when you do that.
Oh man, I mean, it's kind of, I know it's like, I love superhero movies. I love everything kind of hero's journey. And it's like, imagine that as a kid, somebody's like, I bestow on you this superpower. You'd be like, whoa, like, but it really is that you have to find people's strengths so that they use those strengths to solving and helping them become who they want to become. There's the other side of the coin, right? I think that by the way, part of coaching is that, right?
Yeah.
I think coaching is, I mean, we know that what doesn't work is telling people that they suck a lot, right? Like, I think it's good to be able to build trust and show people where they're falling short and their challenges, and do it in a compassionate way, and then help them overcome that, right? But we know from science and studies, and they're overwhelming, that, positive reinforcement helps. Shining a light on strengths helps, right? Like, count their wins helps, because most people like doubt themselves. They have editors inside their head. They think
conscious blindness.
Absolutely. And so our role should be, to encourage the things that people are doing well, so that they do more of them, because we know that's how it works, right? And now, again, the other side of that is, and we've both kind of gone through that, is the side of that, like, that journey that I just talked about in my own life also has a bunch of, negative things attached to it that ended up, when left unaddressed,
they come back. They come back,
and they're going to come back strong, and
the only way through is through. Like, and that's the thing.
It is. Yes, you can't keep suppressing things and think that they go away. They just don't. Now, and maybe we can kind of dabble in this too, because I study so much on these things because I'm so intrigued by them.
So talking about these connections and synchronicities, just to chime in here, is like, I 100% understand and believe everything that you're saying. And for whatever reason, you and I have a synchronicity, in the same way that you and Krebs have a synchronicity, because we keep running into each other in these circumstances. So I knew that getting on here, you would just unconsciously go to this place, because you study this stuff as well, and you see the patterns like I've seen. Like, you see how these things start to connect, and as you start to develop those abilities, more and more open up. Like, that's the beauty of it, but it's the dichotomy, like you said, is you have to go through the part to get to the good, to find the better part. You know what I mean? And that's what I wanted to ask you, is that your understanding and awareness of these skill sets that you had, when did they come about? And was it after going through some level of work and understanding of yourself?
Yes, twofold. One is what you just said, and we'll come to that. The first one is paying attention to what people say to you that you trust, and like, I'll give you an example, like the coaching part. I was still playing pro ball, and my brother was training. Like, we got into like kettlebells early. I mean, we're talking about early 2000s. Pavel Tsetsulin was actually a mentor for me and my brother and Giga and Grega for like, 3 years. I did the first RKC in Denmark in like 2004. To kind of rewind it, like, we were doing kettlebells, and my brother's like, hey, I got these, 3 guys I'm training, kind of just on the side, like, just, for fun, whatnot, but I just can't do it anymore. They're all soccer guys, because my brother used to play soccer at a high level and pro for a little bit too.
Yep.
And he's like, man, you want to train them, and it was like I was playing, and in Division 1, playing pro basketball for this team called Triglav, but not getting paid. It's like, this is a whole nother story, like in pro sports, where teams sometimes don't pay you. You're doing 2-a-days. You want to go to court, but they don't have the money. It's wild. Interesting stories. But So I'm like, and I'm into training like no one else. I mean, I've been into training since I was 13 years old, and my mom opened up a gym, right? And I'm like, cool, I'll do it for, I mean, almost no money, like pretty much for no money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I put him through a session, right? And later on, like I felt so good doing it, by the way. Like it's like banter, I'm coaching, I'm yelling when I need to, I'm challenging these guys. And at the end, they're just like, holy shit, and they're talking shit to me. And it's like, but then my brother hits me up later in the day and he's like, hey man, the guys loved it. They're like, the best thing they've ever done. And they just said that, hey man, your brother has something. It's like he's got a knack for this. There's something inside that dude that, like, I don't know what it is, but like he's good at this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, like it took me a little, like, when my brother said that, I kind of took it in, like, but I was like, oh, okay, whatever, man. Like I'm going through my own life challenges. Like I'm playing pro sports, but like I kind of can say I'm doing it. Like I'm as fit physically as it can be. I'm skilled at it, but like I'm not really making that much money on that year. And it's like we're not getting paid. Like what do I do next? I'm in this kind of identity crisis, right? But it's like it kind of stuck with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that kept happening because we started training people outside in Tivoli, and like, the numbers grew. This was a time where what we were doing was unheard of. Like this was not a thing, like coaching groups and stuff like that. It was big box gyms and that's it. And it went from 3 people to 6 people to 8 people to 10 people, like, to 2 groups of 10. And like, again, we're making, I don't know, charging like €5 a session or something, like just nothing, right? €3 a session.
You're getting paid like lunch, maybe.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it's literally like people are bringing coins, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like, folks are walking by and they're like, oh my God, what are you guys doing? Because it just was like, we're swinging kettlebells, sprinting up hills, like just, and we're like, oh man, like if you want to come on Friday and try it out, it's kind of like the proof of concept thing. So that kind of like those things gave me this feedback of like, hey,
yeah,
who's working here, man, and like you got something, and like I felt it, right? And the gut feeling's a real thing, man. Like that's how Vigor started 19 years ago in Slovenia, plus 19 plus years ago. It was a gut feeling where even my brother, I was like, hey, man, I'm telling you, we got something. And he's like, I don't know. And like, you're probably gonna go to the US, you got married to, like, I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, like, this is it. My friend Giga, who was, those are the guys that own a Slovenian gym, right? Like, and they were, at first it was like skepticism, right? But one ability that I have is, and people will tell you this that have known me for a long time, is that if I believe in something, I am the most relentless on the planet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to make you believe. It's like, even when you have charlatans and it's just like, I'm telling you, you know what I mean? You got to drink this thing. It's going to take cancer away type of thing. Right. Like, and it's like, I believed it so much. And if you ever heard that term, right? Like transferring belief over the bridge of trust, it's like, I just transfer that belief. But there was things that were telling me that I'm good at this stuff.
Yep.
So either it was people or it was like the feedback loop of the proof of concept. It was like, okay, I got
I'm so
something.
glad you mentioned the listening too, because like I think back of myself, and like that was like for me some of the stuff I got away from in my entrepreneurial journey was listening. Like I think back as you're saying, is I'm just kind of have my own epiphanies of like thinking back to how many people were telling me when I was writing more, like you're such a great writer, or like when I was talking about the mindset and like the psychology stuff I talk about now. Back then, like go back like 8 years, 10 years ago, they were saying those same things and I wasn't listening. And I got away from all of that, which was ultimately what brought me to killing that whole side and going back to the things that I should have been listening to. So that like that's so important to listen, man.
Because that part, like listening is part of what? It's part of awareness, right? And awareness precedes change. Because it's like sometimes you're so zoned in on like this thing that you want, but maybe it's not really what you want. It's like the perception of what you want. Like, look, for me, it was, I can say it too, right? Like I was seeking, to be seen. And part of that, like, why did I get into crime was like, I felt powerful, like, hey, I got money, you know what I mean? Like you're afraid of me, right? Like, I mean, what is that? Like power is like Tony Robbins talked about it. What's the fastest way for me to feel powerful? I pull a gun, I point it towards you. But it's fake though, right? Because it's like, it's my insecurity that's driving it.
Put fear in another. We would basically use your fear and weaponize it against someone else.
Absolutely. And it's like, haha, it's like this feeling, right? I was seeking that because inside I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling secure. I wasn't feeling confident. So you try to find these external things, right? That help you kind of, I don't know, like these pillars of your confidence, right? And then you start doing dumb stuff. But I didn't have that. So I didn't have that awareness. And everything we're talking about now is like, going through this journey of figuring this shit out. And that's why I said, we'll talk about that second, because first is like people on a journey, if you're aware enough, like the right people, people you trust that love you, that are like, hey man, like you really got a thing here. Like you're good at this, right? And sometimes you don't hear it until, later on, until you fall on your face. Yep. So that was one. And I think a good drill for anybody that's listening now, man, send 10 people that like you really respect, I would say mostly that you respect and that know you well. And just go, hey, text them. Be like, hey, what are a couple of things about me that you think are like big strengths that you really admire? You'd be surprised. Like, man, I've done this multiple times in my life, and you get stuff back and you're like, oh shit, really? That's what you think? Then you ask them more, right? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, what's an example of like me showing up in this way? Because again, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Like, that's why coaching is so powerful, right? Like in business, like I am in the bottle of my business. A lot of times somebody else can like see something. Hey man, like you do this really well. Why aren't you doing this? And that's, again, ideally you'd get that from somebody that's been there, done that, doing it. Even somebody you aspire to be like, you respect, not just some random person. Like I'm not going to ask a person that's in a small business what they think about, sure.
Don't like ask your drinking buddy too for life advice, like someone that you've had real conversations with.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of like a baseline, but let's be real. Like that, people still take a lot of opinions and advice from people that they don't want to be like, which is kind of crazy, right?
Like, I think there's also like the dichotomy of self-awareness is like you need it from the outside, but at the same time, you also need to be self-aware enough to understand that people's external perception of you most often is serving their own needs. So like, again, which I think just wraps up the point of like, you need both because you have to be able to compare them against each other to see who you really are.
Yes. Because I think it's like, having people that you trust and respect to give you feedback. I think seeking and actually like hunting for feedback is an important factor.
Yeah.
But, like make decisions in your life just based off of other people, even if it's a very, very good, I would say, insight and wisdom, right? Like Ray Dalio calls it believability. Like you want to take advice from people that have high believability in that area, right? It's like during COVID when, a stock blows up and like, a buddy of mine go like, I just made 10 grand overnight, let me give you stock advice. And I'm like, hey man, you know zero about stocks. You know what I mean? Like you got lucky, cool, awesome. I'm happy for you. But hey, like, I'm not going to take advice from you. Now, if Ray Dalio is like, well, listen, Luka, let me give you some advice on investing. I'm like, well, I was one of the greatest investors of our time. High believability.
Listen.
You know what I mean? My friend, low believability in that area. Ray Dalio, high believability, right? So I think that matters.
Yeah.
Like if I'm talking, if I'm speaking with you and you've had success in the gym space, like, and you give me some insight on the gym, to me, you got high believability. Like I'm going to have a conversation with you, man. I'm going to take your insights and listen to you. Right. So I think in your life, when we talk about this, getting feedback from somebody else, make sure they have high believability in the advice that you're getting from that person. Right.
Yeah.
But part two, and maybe more importantly, right, is self-awareness, right? Because, and by the way, let me connect this to how important this is in coaching. Okay. In coaching, to manage somebody else, you have to manage yourself. Mm-hmm. You cannot be an elite coach without having awareness of self, right? Again, things like, do I take care of my own body? Do I do the things that I preach others to do? I'm coaching you on how to listen better, but I'm horrible at listening, right? And that was one of my issues too, right? And you have to have, reflection in your own life. And I'll say this, books were massive for me. Books changed my life. And, if you're watching this on video, you see like, this is one of 6 bookshelves in my podcast room, but it's only here because my girl was like, bro, we don't have enough space in the house for any more of your books. I got like 2,000 books and like,
I get yelled at all the time for my books.
Yeah. And like, new Amazon pack. Why you keep ordering books? But, and, to say this, and here's why, here's why, right? This idea of collecting. So think about two different things, collecting role models and hunting for skill sets. Such powerful principles in my life, right? Like that I was very thankful to figure out early. Like collecting role models was like, okay, well, I can, maybe without meeting these people, I can collect role models. So I can read a book about them and how, what they did in life, where they fell on their face, how they overcame that, and like these values that they have. And I can basically be like, I like the way that this person's operating and I want to be like them. And what's cool about it is that like you could actually piece together your own Megatron, like meaning, hey, that person does philanthropy great, but I don't really like them. I don't think they're a great parent, by the way. But man, how they do philanthropy, I'm going to collect that role model. But hey, I read about this person's parenting and wow, that's amazing. I want to be like them as a parent, right? Collect the role model. And I'm piecing together the Megatron of who I want to become, essentially, right? And that was powerful to me because what it makes you do is it makes you go, do I do that in my life? And you're like, oh shit, I don't, so I was brainwashing myself with like this kind of visual of who do I want to become? But it's like there, you feel the contrast, you feel the gap. You're like, dude, I don't operate like this. Like, hey, that's a role model of like effectiveness in your day. And like, Craig Ballantyne, obviously Craig is been a longtime friend, just had him on the show too. And, Craig, when I met Craig, he was one of those just like efficiency at another level, and you're like, shit, I'm not that efficient. Damn, bro. What am I doing with my life? So you kind of, and you get a contrast and then you start becoming self-aware, right? Because again, that like you're putting in your head, it's like, whoa, these people I look up to in that area, they operate differently than me. I got to change that, right? So books were kind of like that first intro to me to like from the pages I was getting coached and mentored without that direct kind of back and forth and accountability and whatever, right? But that's what led me to go to seminars and invest in coaches. And I was I'm very grateful that I did that early on. I mean, before I even moved to America, I remember I was playing ball, working for my brother. He had a translating agency. And I wanted to join this, but I was studying training. I was doing some of that training on the side as a side hustle. And it was something called TIC, Trainers Inner Circle. And I was ran by Pat Riggsby, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I'm talking about like 19 years ago, like 18, 19, like a long time ago, right? And I told my brother, I said, hey, look, man, how about you, like the work that I'm doing for you, don't pay me and just put this on your credit card. You know what I mean? Like, like we're in exchange for services. So I'm like doing 2-a-days in basketball, being a pro athlete. In between, I go coach people. And then I run my brother's company, not run the company, but like 3 to 4 hours a day, I'm doing stuff for him, right? And like whatever he's paying me is going towards the coaching aspect of it.
Was there something that drove you towards that? Like, I think that just again, like at that age to be so forward thinking towards personal development, can you think back? Like, did you see something or did you know someone who was doing it and you're like, oh, wow, I should look into developing myself? Or is it just natural to get better?
I think that to get better part, I think it carried over. I mean, ambition kind of drives it, right? Like ambition drives for you to want to figure it out. But I think there was a couple components. One, it was that my dad went from being an employee to like taking a big risk, because when we moved back from London, he was like, hey, he lost his job. I'm going to stay here. I saved a little bit of money. Let me try to side hustle, make it work. So he became an entrepreneur, and he ended up living away from us for 30 years afterwards. So he lived in London while we went back. That's a whole nother long story. But so it was some of that. And he read a lot, right? Yeah. So I saw that again, like we'll talk about the importance of what you see is the most important thing. And he was, trying to figure shit out. So he was studying and learning and like, I saw that. So that was one thing. The second thing was that in basketball, it was very like building your skill set. It became a very kind of clear thing. And I was surrounded by very incredible coaches, right? So I played on Olympia, which was the best team in the country at that point in time. The training we did would probably today, because today is soft as can be, would probably everybody go to jail. All the coaches go to jail for that today. But it was like we were
every time I see one of those articles, I think back to my own football doubles back in the day when we were not allowed to drink water for long. Like you weren't allowed to drink water unless you completed all the sprints. And then when you did, it was being pumped out of like a insecticide sprayer. That's how we gave each other water. Just like, man, like today people would be all upset about plastics. And
I mean, the thing is, some of it when I look back to is like, you could say like, yeah, that wasn't smart. It was dumb. But honestly, there's so much of it that shaped me into who I am, because I had such a desire to prove myself, right? Because especially on basketball, I was a scrawny kid. Like my generation was like, Goran Dragic, who just retired, 19 years in the NBA, being a Udrih, two-time, champion with the Spurs, Rasan Nesterovic. I played with Luka Doncic's dad. Like, I mean, it was like elite, right? Like elite,
Yeah.
like world elite type of stuff, right? And for me to even make the team of 12 in Olympia, I had to eat dumbbells, man. I mean, the analogy of like I just had to work so hard, harder than most others to like make it. And our training in general and our coaches were hardcore. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, it was like high school. Most kids done with school, yeah, go out and play. Like I got a 2 hour practice, 6, 7 days a week. Soon as school's over, it's 2 a days, baby. You know what I mean? And like we're,
Well, I feel like
conditioning.
all Eastern European training is a different mindset. Like,
It was, man, it was hard, and I'm so glad that I went through it and it was that. But because one of the things there was kind of like, man, I want to get better at this. And it's like, all right, coaches are like, we're going to tie that right hand. We're going to dribble with the left. Here's the drills. And just like very repetitive, right? This much before practice, this much after practice, do this by yourself. Hey, shooting coach, go do that. It was just like, you had this idea of like, I'm going to seek out the drill and I'm going to practice the drill with exception. I mean, being exceptional, and I'm going to prove that skill. And so, that carried over to like personal development. How do I become better as a business guy, entrepreneur? Like, it was like, okay, what's the resource? I can read this book, and for me, like I very early on started, and I know, the sites, right? Like T Nation, Elite
yeah, yeah,
FTS, it's how I met, crazy stories, but like I read those articles. I was still playing pro ball. And like Eric Cressy had a seminar in Birmingham, England. I fly to London, take the train to Birmingham. It was him and Nick Grantham. And I do a seminar. I meet Eric, buy all his products, go to lunch. 6 months later, I'm in the US, for 9 days training at Cressy Sports Performance right when it opened, right? Like, and again, it was like that whole like, this guy's like great at what he does. Cool. Like, let me learn, let me go there. I was spending all my
yeah.
money on like on education, but it came from that. Like, one, seeing people around me, like, how do they get better? What do? They go and read, they go and, pay people for their device, right? You back then it was like you had to buy the DVDs. Obviously, there was, no digital stuff online apart from maybe ebooks starting there. But like, so it was like, cool, let me
Try to explain that to a kid today, a $400 DVD.
Yeah. Wait, they'll get there in 2 weeks once you order it, and then might get lost in the mail.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though. When I think this is the other important part. I did take action on things fast, and then I got the feedback loop, right? Which is like, I learned the thing, I go and I do the thing, it works. So positive reinforcement, right? Like we know like human
Yeah.
beings are intrinsically motivated by three different things, right? It's like the self-determination theory. Competence, which is so important, like getting better. Like if you get better, you get fired up, right? If you see yourself improving, you get fired up. Number two is autonomy, which is choice. Like we believe that we have choice and agency in our own life, right? And again, we could kind of break these down and how they work in coaching and how we use them in coaching. But in third is relatedness, right? Which is community. Like if we're around others, like with that belief that make us better and like we're connected with, because we're social tribal creatures, that also drives motivation. And for me, when I break it down, like basketball was that for me, right? Basketball was like, I show up at practice, I do these things, and I see myself getting better. I used to make 5 shots. Now I routinely make 8 out of 10, right? My ball handling skills, I can do, I used to have a tough time guarding this guy, but you know what? Now I'm hitting the weights and it's like, I'm faster. That guy bumps into me, bumps off. This is working, right?
It just gets another level of self-awareness too.
Absolutely. And so that to me, you like if you're playing sports, I would say that's a huge. There's so many reasons to play sports as a kid, by the way, that none of them have to do anything with getting a scholarship and going professional like I did or anything like that, right? Man, what the character traits that I learned there. Number one, hard work, overcoming adversity, right? Like being consistent, being a team player. Playing for the name on the front of the jersey, not on the back of the jersey.
Yeah.
Building community like brotherhood, man. You go to war with these people, right? Like, I mean, you would just do anything for that group of people. It became this like true family, right? That communication. I mean, the amount of times, like the amount of kudos that I have to give to my coaches, like we'd get in physical fist fights with our teammates, right? and then boom, coach has a meeting, and it's like team meeting and then one-on-one meeting. And then do you know how many of those we had? Because I was also a knucklehead, where it's like we'd have to square away, have a crucial conversation per se before you knew what the hell that was.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then overcome it. And then on the other side of that, we're tighter, right? These are all lessons, and I could go on and on that I was
Again, like so fortunate enough to have them too. Like
absolutely. And it's like, this is, when I said we choose our environments and then our environments shape us, just like we choose our tools or we shape our tools and the tools shape us. Well, you have an opportunity, this is why I think coaching is the greatest job in the world, whether it's fitness, whether it's something else, because you are helping people, ideally too at a young age, develop these skills and this awareness. And it's like, it can completely alter and change your life, right? I look at that and I go like, all these skills that I would develop through, the hardships of what I went through, but then also, sport. And it's like, people are like, well, how did you, become good at business? I said, well, sure, I had all these experiences that I already shared with you, but man, like I learned the value of hard work and not giving up through basketball. I was the kid that was like, my coach, when I went, pro, basically, because in Europe, the way it is like you play for the junior team of the pro team, if that makes sense. And he cared for me, but he was like, hey man, like, dude, you're one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life, but you're not gonna make it. To my face, like, and I'm like, okay, and I ended up, going to college, getting a full ride my last 2 years, playing 3 years professional basketball, making it to the NBA Summer Pro League on a free agent team, which is like, 24 players out of 550. And I never made it to the league and made that contract. But my journey, like what I did to get to somewhere I was not supposed to get to based on what everybody said, that I have to this day. And I transferred it to coaching. I transferred it to fitness and the gym space and everything that I do. And it's, it's built on these values and characteristics.
I think that's why it's so important. Again, like why it's so important to go back and then look at it and understand how you built these characteristics and understand that like the journey you went through, because I could also see, not now, but I could see a completely different version of Luka that could have come out of that, where he was extremely resentful of the things that someone said to him. And then he didn't achieve what the person said. And then he believed it. And then he got down on himself. And then he never went on to do all the things that you did. But again, you had that awareness to know that this could either build me or I could use it to break me. And you made the choice to use it to build you. And I just think that's amazing in itself, dude. Like, so kudos to you, dude.
Thing, right? You become like, there's so much, going back to why I think it's really important to have good role models, even if they're not directly in your life. Because, man, this is a great, by the way, I'll connect the dots here. Like a great book is called The Alter Ego.
I like that.
It's awesome. I try to reread that like pretty often. But, in there it says, when they gave kids a unsolvable puzzle, right? And they were like, hey, just try to solve this puzzle no matter what. Give it your best shot, right? And then a group of kids, they just said, hey, give it your best shot, do the best that you can. And another group of kids, they gave them an identity, right? Like, hey, you're Batman, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're Batman, like, try to solve this puzzle. Like, and again, do everything that you can to solve this puzzle. But it was unsolvable. Now, one group of kids, they didn't give them like an identity, right? They had their kind of own identity. They didn't know who they were yet, and they just go. The other group, they're like, hey, you're Batman, right? And the group that was Batman continued to solve the puzzle significantly longer than another group of kids, right? Because they went like, well, what would Batman do? He would give up. Batman wouldn't give up on his problem, right? Yeah. And they kept going. This is why it's so important to be like, if I'm like, well, what would this person do, right? We all know the What Would Jesus Do bands, but it's like that collecting role models. Imagine you had like 20 bands on your hand, and in different scenarios, you go like, what would Richard Branson do here? What would Gary Vee do here? What would Mark Rooney do here? And it's like, I started doing that. And it was like, they do this. Now, I know what they would do because I read the book, or I went through the course, or I went to the seminar, right? Like, and now what you said is like, so glad that you didn't go this other route, right? Because if your role model is like, I don't know, and there was a point in time too where I'm looking up to, hey, that's the top drug dealer in the city, right?
Well, that was another question I wanted to ask is like, is one just talking about like positive role models, and you've been fortunate to have a lot of them that I would say you saw, because sometimes we have them and we don't see them or we don't listen to them. We don't know it's there, you know? But at the same time, I would imagine that you also had some negative role models that either one, you had to later change your mindset because it was different, or you realized what you were learning wasn't right, or two, that you saw, hey, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, well, both of those, right? Because, like, for example, this is why I say I think part of the reason why I chose coaching, because, coaches did truly change my life. Like my coach in basketball, when I was kind of in the midst of doing a lot of dumb stuff and doing criminal activities, and and he was like, "Hey, man, I know, coaches know, they hear from the streets, they hear from people, and it's like, hey, I know what you're doing, right? Like, it's like, look,
Yeah.
Luka, like." He would not, sometimes he wouldn't tell me stuff. He'd leave me with a question and then leave. And by the way, I highly respect and care for that person. So I think that matters, right? Like I cared about his opinion about me, which is another lesson here. Like to, surround yourself with people like you look up to and you deeply care about and respect them and their opinion about you. So, and he would be almost like, as fatherly figure, like disappointed. He's like,
Yeah.
man, you're so good. You're the hardest working person I know. Like, here's the thing, like, where are you going to put this energy? Like, he's like, there's only one route this leads to. It's jail, it's death, it's, and it's like, and here you have this opportunity. And he wouldn't be like, you're an idiot if you don't, like, he would just kind of leave it there. You know what I mean? Like that he would kind of not directly say that, but it was like, well, who do you want to become? Man. And it's like, that would like eat at me. And then you kind of wrestle inside with that, those types of moments in life were massive for me. That one conversation that we had was one of the reasons I ended up pulling the trigger after Eastern Invitational, coming back to Slovenia and going like, and I'm going to junior college in Binghamton, going to Broome, And so it's like, it comes back to that, like, we know, by the way, and this will veer off course and then come right back, like, why we have this massive problems with kids with no fathers, with no role models, right? In this country. It's and all you got to do is like go research it to know what I'm talking about. But it's also why I'm so magnetically pulled towards youth and like even people of any age. Like coaching is this opportunity of like, if I can just shift your belief system and your frame of looking at the world a little bit, I can alter your life. You're going to have to do it. Like you have to do the work at the end of the day, right? But maybe I can make enough of a difference like somebody did for me. And they made this change that completely changed the trajectory of where they go. Like where I could have been the guy that's like, oh, that guy was one of the greatest drug dealers. He's dead, like at 22, right? Like versus like now I'm about to turn 44 and I've been coaching for over 20 years and I'm excited about the next decade. Like I'm like, how good can I become at coaching? How many people can I influence? Like there's no limit to my skills getting better, right? Because I aged of being a better coach, a better leader, a better human, a better father, a better, partner. Belief systems drive so much of that. It's insane. And our belief systems are basically, some of it is nature, some of it is nurture. But I always advise folks to go, one, question your beliefs and ask yourself, are they useful? People are like, is that right or wrong? I'm like, is it useful?
I think even asking what is it though, because I think a lot of people, I guess I don't know about you, but I feel like most people in our world are so afraid of themselves that they don't even have the balls to look at it, let alone question it.
It's difficult, man. Like, I mean, here's the thing, right?
And I understand, like I get it.
Because we've all been through it, right? But the way that you express a fear, number one, is like you shine a light on it, which a lot of
knowledge
times it disappears, right? Or sometimes even if
false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. Right. And sometimes it's like, hey, it's real, but at least I'm looking at it. And I mean, part of, when people say, how do you, what's the formula for confidence? I personally think it's a mix of different things. One, I think it's competence, like we talked about. Like the better you get at a skill, the more confident you're going to feel. Number two is social proof, meaning just proof of concept. Like, hey, I got proof that I can train people and get them good results. I got proof that I can do this, that, and the other. But then the third one is courage, right? Like when we talk about like, hey, there's a fear. You're not going to be successful in your life if you don't lean into and are courageous and do hard things and do things you're afraid of. And it doesn't have to be, this massively overwhelming jump. It can be just exposure. It's kind of like if you're afraid of spiders. Like at first, it might just be like being close to a spider. It's not even touching it, right? And you kind of get comfortable with that. Then eventually you just touch it. And then eventually you hold it for 5 seconds, right? And then, I mean, little by little.
Yeah, you're not going to be afraid of it.
As you have more exposure, you're like, okay, I'm just more comfortable with it. Because let's be real. I mean, like think about the things in your life. I think that people are fine with it. I had a great conversation with Morty. He's like, hey, we're in Europe, and like I go to the sauna, I got my swim trunks on, and it's like everybody's naked and I'm freaking out, and it's like, how's everybody so calm? And I'm like, well, I grew up in that. Like the only thing I know is everybody being right and mixed, right? So
so much of it, again, it's because it's some weird like label or societal norm that gets placed on it that makes you think that it's weird. Me and my brother talk a lot about this, like the philosophical part of like society today. And he just was down here visiting in St. Pete, and there's lots of homeless people. And it's interesting to watch people who come to visit from other places, and they go and try to like give them stuff. They try to like hand them like, they try to like pander to them, and the people are like, get away from me, I don't need you, and it's just like, you don't understand, like you're trying to judge them for doing something that you think is unnatural, but living in the environment's probably the most natural thing here. Like
yeah and that's the thing though, right? Like you start understanding when it comes to like the whole, you look back and you go like, what was the thing that was like really hard for you, and now just isn't. And you just unpack it. And it's like, how did you make it not hard? And it's like, well, I did a bunch of it, but I didn't just do a massive amount. I mean, it's part of the reason why, a lot of times these huge overhauls of transformations with your body don't do well because it's too overwhelming and you just can't stick with it, right? But everything else is just like that, right? And it's like, this is part of the reason why, like, I love it. I try to break things down in life, anything that you want to improve on, and the identity that you want to build, right? Like, I mean, James Clear made this popular, like casting votes for who you want to become, the identity of it. And I think it's such a massive skill to be able to regress things and make them doable for people. And every person's got a different level of how much they can take on. Some people can take on huge chunks. Some people cannot. And as a coach, you find what's right for them. That was called the Goldilocks effect, if anybody's read about that, right? It's like, it's about 5 to 7% past your comfort, right? Like past your challenge zone. So it's a little harder than what you can do, but it's in the zone of believability. It's like, man, this is going to challenge me, but I think I can do it, right? And you have to find that Goldilocks effect for different people, whatever it is. Being a better parent, being better at fitness, being better at eating more protein, being better at speaking, being better at creating content, being, everything, right? Yeah. And it's like, and then just finding that practice for them to do to build that skill. Now, here's what's cool. You start stacking more and more of those wins of your competence. And now all of a sudden, hey, now you can take a little bit more than you used to, because you're like, I got this, right? And truly that is like, because I want to finish on this note, is like, do you go back in your past and try to overanalyze like why you are the way that you are? And I think there's benefit to going to look at it, but then you can't stay there. You can't ruminate because you're just reinforcing that, right? Mm-hmm. You got to go like, I'm aware now. I'm aware why this might have happened. And then you focus on the actions that make you a different identity, that create a different identity. You don't go back and just like, I don't believe in, by the way, and again, science supports this. They're like, that goes like, hey, let's spend hours and months and years of my life talking about like my problems from the past. Like you're going to get much better at being stuck there versus going, identifying it and then going like, okay, how do we go and change that and start to make that Goldilocks effect of practice to start creating a new identity, that the one that you're proud of, the one that, the person that you want to become, that is essentially, the lighthouse.
Yeah, dude, I love that. And I just to wrap up, what you said there too, with not getting stuck there. That's why like the thing I talk about in helping people with this work now is that you have to have the awareness of the past to be able to accept your present. And then what that does is it allows you to open a door to that new future. And that's what Luka's talking about. Like you have to walk through the door. You can't just keep sitting there and ruminating and all the bad things that happen to you. Like you have to learn from them and then move past them. And I think just everything he talked about with like being with the role models and negative role models and evolving your identity is so on point. And just to speak to my experience and the mistake I made is that he's not saying to like kill off the parts of yourself you don't like. He's saying evolve them, because I killed them off and then I had to go and find them and bring them back and put them all together and then evolve them, so like don't try like the whole idea of like killing the inner bitch and like getting rid of these parts of yourself. Like I think it sounds cool and all great on social media, but like you gotta build yourself and you will overcome all of those things and you're not going to be stuck going backwards. Like otherwise it's just it's not a fun ride the other way.
That's gonna, we're gonna have to do another episode because it's like a dot of stuff that I want to talk about. I've went through, and the shadow coach I've done, and man, there's so much to unpack there.
I know I want to talk to you about so many more deeper things too. And I don't know if you saw the article I posted that I tagged you in, but if you get a chance sometime, look at it, because that's what I'm talking about, of like this manufactured celebrity that's run rampant, where people are trying to become this fake identity that's not even who that person is, and it's pulling them away from themselves and making everything way more difficult, and they have no clue what's happening.
Let's commit to doing another show on that, because I want to talk about that. And I want to dive strictly around that whole concept for a whole episode. Because there's periods of time where I found myself doing that.
I was stuck in it for 5 years. Like, I can understand.
By the way, like, I just think there'd be a lot of light to almost like, hey, this is what this looks like. This is where this can, like, here's probably a better way to do it. People that have been there, done that. And, again, to me, it's like the Greeks call it yada. There's like, yada is like learning through the experience of doing, versus, knowledge of something. Cause I read it in a book, where like everything, like, and even everything we talked about here on the show, right? It's basically like, these are things that like I've learned. Yes, I've read a lot of stuff, but like, let me discern like basically what I learned through doing all of stuff, and then the pain of it, and the wisdom and experience of it, right? So yeah, I'd love to do that, because I gotta jump on another call. But like, man, this thing is like, because time for me having these conversations kind of melts, because I'm so into.
I love it. Everything like I washes over, and we're here, and it's just this like solo conversation one-on-one. But yeah, dude, like I totally understand what you're saying. And like, that's like the difficulty in teaching this, is that like, I can only teach you because I've had the experience, but you can only fully learn it by going through the experience. Like, you can listen to the stuff we talk about all day and get a ton of insights for yourself, but at some point you're going to have to take that step through the door that we're talking about. But yeah, dude, this is awesome. We got to do it again. As we wrap up, sorry for the messy ending, everybody. But where can everyone find Luka? And I know social media, like, what are the social media handles? Where can they find you? What's the best place right now?
Probably the best three, I would say, is Instagram is at Luka Hocevar, LukaHocevar. My YouTube, which is the same, just Luka Hocevar. And then Vigor Life Podcast. So if you go on iTunes or Spotify, VIGOR, so Vigor Life Podcast. Most of the stuff I drop in there. You'll find, vigorgroundfitness.com, lukahocevar.com, built-to-last-gym.com. Those are kind of like the businesses if you want to check those out.
I was going to tell you that. Sorry, I couldn't list all your accolades in the intro. It was way too long.
Don't worry about all that shit. It was a pleasure to be on the show, dude. I love these conversations. Let's definitely do this again.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much. And make sure to go check Luka out at all of his spots. And I'll put some of the stuff in our show notes so you guys can find him easily. And see you in the next episode.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. And if you are a small business owner and you are ready to unlock your true leadership potential, scale your profits, and build a business that actually thrives without you, here are 3 ways that I can help. Number 1, take the What Type of Leader Are You quiz. I'll leave it in the show notes. It's going to give you some great insights into the patterns that are basically running your leadership style and negatively impacting you and your team. The second way is the Lighthouse Leader Program. This is a intensive program for you to develop your leadership skills, remove the mental blocks that have been holding you back, and take you and your business to the next level. If you want to learn more about it, find me on Instagram, Ryan.Lighthouse. Shoot me a DM that says Lighthouse Leader, and we can talk details. And finally, the last way would be to work with me privately. I do mentor small business owners and their teams to grow their business and remove the owner from the day-to-day operations. And if you want to learn how to do that, same thing. Go on Instagram, find me, Ryan.Lighthouse. Send me a DM that says mentorship. We can talk about the details of one-on-one mentorship and how I can come in and help work with you and your team. But thank you again for listening to this show, and stay tuned for next episode.